Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Today, somewhere to stay.
Accommodation.
Accommodation for people who are traveling.
Natalie, where do you like staying when you're traveling?
I like bed and breakfast places.
Bed and breakfast places? What are they?
They're small hotels or even people's houses where you often stay for just one night and have a bed and breakfast.
Oh.
Where do you like staying, Kevin?
If I can, I stay in a youth hostel.
Why?
It's a place where you can meet people. And it's a place that doesn't cost much.
Why do you like staying in a youth hostel? Why do you like staying in a youth hostel?
It's a place where you can meet people. It's a place that doesn't cost much.
Where do you like staying when you're traveling?
When I'm traveling, the accommodation I prefer is mainly bed and breakfast accommodation. I prefer that to hotels because I find hotels too formal. Bed and breakfast accommodation is more homely.
I like places that are small and have a warm family atmosphere.
I like to stay at places that are big and fancy.
I like staying in suites. And the Embassy Suites is an American phenomenon, but it's where you get a nice room and a nice bedroom suite and a small kitchenette.
Before I was married and had children, I went camping a lot. But now, if we go traveling, we'll stay in a hotel.
Yes.
Do you have a room for the night?
Yes. Come in. Here's your room.
Where's the bed?
Bed. Bed. What's a bed?
It's a thing that you sleep on.
You can sleep there.
Is there a bathroom?
A bathroom? What's a bathroom?
Well, it's a place where you can wash your hands and face.
You can wash your hands and face there.
Oh.
Well, good night then.
Good night.
Oh, if there's anything you need, a towel.
Yes.
Soap.
Yes.
Don't ask me.
Oh.
You used to work in a hotel, didn't you?
Yes, when I was a student.
What did you do?
I was a bellboy.
A bellboy?
Yes.
I used to work in a hotel as well.
Really? Were you a bellboy?
No, I worked as a receptionist.
A bellboy and a receptionist. Two people who work in a hotel. A bellboy is someone who carries your suitcases. A bellboy is someone who carries your suitcases. The receptionist is the person who gives you your key. The receptionist is the person who gives you your key. James Brady is in Manchester on business. He's staying in a hotel.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Terrible weather.
Yes.
Excuse me, but what happened to you?
A car went past and splashed me. My name is Brady, by the way. James Brady. I have a reservation.
Oh, yes, Mr. Brady. You're the person who asked about a conference room.
That's right.
Well, our small meetings room is free tomorrow.
Well, excellent. That's just what I wanted.
Good. And you're staying for 2 nights?
Yes.
Bed and breakfast only?
That's right.
Would you mind filling in this form, please?
Nope, not at all.
You can have your shirt washed here in the hotel if you like.
Can I have my suit cleaned as well?
That should be no problem. I'll give you a call in your room.
Great. Thanks.
The hotel receptionist wanted James to fill in a form. This is what she said.
Would you mind filling in this form?
Would you mind? That's a polite way of asking somebody to do something. It means, is it a problem for you to do this? And how did James answer?
No, not at all.
James said, no, not at all. That means, no, it isn't a problem. James's shirt is dirty. The receptionist offered to wash it. Well, not wash it herself, but she said that someone in the hotel would wash it.
You can have your shirt washed here in the hotel.
That was good news for James, so he asked about his suit as well.
Can I have my suit cleaned?
James doesn't want to clean the suit himself. He wants someone else to do it. So he said, can I have it cleaned?
Now James is in his hotel room. He wants to have his shirt washed. He wants to have his suit cleaned. And he's hungry.
Hello, James Brady.
Reception here, Mr. Brady. It's okay, you can have your suit cleaned. It'll be ready tomorrow morning. Can you give it to the maid on your floor?
Yes, of course. That's marvellous. Thank you very much. Oh, can I have something to eat?
Yes, certainly. I'll put you through to room service.
Room service. Can I help you?
Yes. Can I have a beef sandwich, please? And an orange juice.
Of course. It'll be about 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Your food, sir.
Thank you.
Would you mind signing the bill, please?
Sorry. No, of course not. Oh. Sorry.
Thank you, sir.
In the United States, there are many different places for travelers to stay. One of them is Rancho Encantado, a ranch hotel in New Mexico. The owner of the hotel is John Egan. Let's find out what Rancho Encantado has to offer.
We have 2 tennis courts at Rancho Encantado that are of a very good surface called Plexipave. And the individual that we have taking care of them, we refer to as the recreation director. We have a swimming pool which has a sun deck around it where the guests can sit back and just enjoy the beautiful sunshine of New Mexico. We have a variety of services and amenities available at Rancho Encantado. For instance, we offer a laundry service on a daily basis where the guests can have their clothing sent into town and actually cleaned and pressed, and they can get them back the same day.
Good morning, Mr. Thompson.
Hi, I'm checking out.
Certainly. Do you have your key with you?
The front desk is the nerve center of the entire operation. There is nothing that takes place on Rancho Encantado that doesn't at some point involve the front desk.
And I'd be happy to explain this to you. We have 3 nights at this rate here, and this is your tax on your room. This is an implied deposit of $350 that you sent in to us. I have a dinner charge, 1 evening, laundry, 2 horseback rides, and 1 massage.
Horseback riding is a very important feature of Rancho Encantado, and it's certainly one of the reasons that people come from around the country to stay at the ranch. The person in charge of our stable operation, we refer to as the head wrangler.
How you doing, son?
Wrangler, of course, is a term that is common in the Southwest, and it just means the person who takes care of the horses.
Most of our riders have never been on a horse. We're happy to take them out and give them an opportunity to see the land and the beauty of New Mexico by horseback, not by car. There are deer and squirrel and a lot of beautiful birds, and the bear and elk are primarily more in the wilderness. But from time to time, like in the fall of the year, they'll come down a little bit, so we'll catch them. 1, 2, 3, go! Hold at the knot. Okay. Take your other hand and grasp the reins together. Okay? Now slide your hand down toward the horse's neck.
I think the reason that people come to the Southwest is not only because of the scenery itself, the vast spaces and the beautiful colors of the country, but also the important history and the legends that surround the Southwest insofar as cowboys are concerned and Indians and so on. This is a uniquely American sort of legend, but at the same time it's something that I think people throughout the world really identify with and love to be a part of.
New Mexico looks beautiful.
Fascinating.
Yes, it is.
Well, that's all for today. It's goodbye from me, from the man who used to be a bellboy, and the woman who used to be a receptionist. Goodbye.
And have a nice day.
Hello. Today we look at careers.
We're going to talk about the work that people do and how long they've been doing it.
And we'll talk about people's ambitions, what they want to do and what they want to be.
Let's start with James Brady. James and Julia formed their own company 3 months ago. They've been working together since then. At the moment, James is in Manchester on business. He's in his hotel dining room waiting for breakfast.
Paul Cook?
Yes? Sorry, I don't...
James Brady.
Of course. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Would you like to join me?
Thank you very much.
Are you still with MAP Advertising?
No, I have my own company now. Well, I'm working with Julia Marsh.
Oh, I remember Julia. How is she?
Fine.
How long have you been working together?
For about 3 months. Since May. What about you? Are you still working for,
Art and Design.
Art and Design?
Yes, I've been working there for 10 years.
Good morning, Mr. Brady.
Good morning.
How's your suit?
Oh, it's all right now. Thank you very much.
Good.
How's your suit?
I'll explain during breakfast.
James told Paul Cook that he was working with Julia Marsh. Paul wanted to know something.
How long have you been working together? How long have you been working together?
And this is how James answered.
For 3 months, since May. For 3 months, since May.
Paul talked about his job at a company called Art and Design.
I've been working there for 10 years. He started 10 years ago. He's still working there, so he said, I've been working there for 10 years.
What kind of work do you do? And how long have you been doing it?
I'm a U.S. Customs inspector, and I've been doing it for 20 years.
I am a dentist, and I have been doing this work for 20 years.
I go to Lake Brantley High School, and I've been going to high school for the last 3 years.
I've been working at the Morgan Motor Company, a manufacturer of cars, for the last 6 years.
I work for the London Ambulance Service, and I've been working there for the past 4 years.
I'm a writer and a journalist, and I've been doing that for nearly 30 years.
Over here. How long have you been standing like that?
I don't know.
Well, look at your sign.
1590. 1590? I've been standing like this since 1590.
Since 1590? What about me? Can you read my sign?
1575.
1575? That means we've been like this for more than 400 years.
Let's go back to James Brady and Paul Cook at their hotel in Manchester.
So, I had my suit cleaned and got it back this morning.
I see.
What are you doing here in Manchester?
I have an interview for a job.
A job?
Yes. I've been looking for a new job for ages. I've applied for a job with a newspaper company here in Manchester.
What kind of job?
Well, they're starting a new weekly magazine for young people, and they're looking for a designer.
Have you worked on a magazine before?
No, but it's always been my ambition. Oh, I must go. I don't want to be late.
Well, good luck.
Thank you. I've been looking for a new job for ages. I've applied for a job with a newspaper company.
Have you worked on a magazine before?
No, but it's always been my ambition.
Paul has always wanted to work on a magazine. It's always been his ambition. What's your ambition, Kevin? What would you like to be?
I'd like to be a writer, a novelist.
Have you written any books?
Not yet, but I will. Do you have any secret ambitions, David?
Yes. I'd like to learn to fly. I'd like to be a pilot.
Really?
Yes.
What about you? Do you have any secret ambitions?
I've always wanted to write a successful stage play for the West End.
I'd actually like to climb Mount Everest.
I'd like to retire when I'm 55.
Secret ambitions. I'd like to write a book.
I've always wanted to play the piano.
One of my secret ambitions that has nothing to do with work is to win the Texas Championships in cycling.
The Royal College of Art in London has courses in painting, sculpture, photography, and much more. Katie Burnell is a student of ceramics. That's working with clay. Rob Gerling is studying computer design. Let's find out about their studies.
I'm studying a course called Computer-Related Design, which is a 2-year course leading to a master's degree in design. I've been studying since September '91, and hopefully I'll graduate in July this year. In short, the course is about making computers easier to use. That's my job. In our society, we're using computers more and more as a part of our work routine, and it's come down to people like me on our course to think of more interesting ways of interacting with machines, computers, more effective ways, and perhaps more imaginative ways.
I'm studying for an MA in ceramics at the Royal College of Art. I've been studying for nearly 2 years now. This is my final year. The first year we do quite a lot of project work, and then throughout the summer holidays after the first year we have to write a thesis. And then in the second year we have a final exam where we have to put up a show and talk about our work for an hour. And then we have a big show where the public come to see what we've made. I'm working on a project at the moment which is basically making a large piece of sculpture. I've been working on it now since the beginning of September, and I started the project by making large collages from drawings of myself. And the sculpture is made up of a pair of arms and a pair of legs, and they're very large and curvaceous. They're going to be in very, very bright colours. And they will be set against a stripy coloured background. In the end, I will present it for my MA. It'll be part of my show. I'm presenting some sculpture, and also as a complete contrast to that, I'm presenting a range of tableware whose colours and forms will reflect the forms and colours of the sculpture. So I'm presenting two completely different things, but which relate to each other.
What are Katie and Rob's ambitions? Do they know yet?
Yes, I really would like to get my own studio, but to start with, I don't think I'll be able to afford it. So I will have to get some sort of job, whatever it is. I may have to be a waitress or work in a bar or something to get enough money together to get my own studio. But that's what I ultimately would like, and to exhibit work in galleries and exhibitions.
I'd like to be part of a general movement, I think, to make technology a really fundamental and useful part of our daily lives. And there's a big push in computers at the moment to develop small and portable personal electronic products that will really be useful to people's lives, that they will really find and get pleasure from. Perhaps I think that people like me on my course have some of the answers to making those products more accessible, more usable, more friendly.
Well, I hope that Rob and Katie achieve their ambitions.
How long have we been working today?
Since 9 o'clock this morning.
That's 8 hours.
I think that's long enough.
So do I. Goodbye.
Bye.
Hello.
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 Today, we look at exhibitions. You can see exhibitions of paintings,
Sculpture.
Photography.
science.
You can see exhibitions at a museum.
Or at an art gallery.
What kind of exhibitions do you like?
I love the surrealist painters, and if there are any exhibitions on, I always try to get to see them.
I like paintings and historical exhibitions.
I love art galleries.
I like art exhibitions most of all, I suppose. But any sort of art.
My favorite museum is the Museum of Natural History in New York City, which has the fantastic dinosaur display.
I like modern art exhibitions.
I went to see an exhibition of sculpture last week. It was at the Tate Gallery. That's an art gallery in London. It wasn't the first time I'd been to the Tate Gallery. I'd been there many times before. But it was the best exhibition I'd ever seen there.
Yes, it was great, wasn't it? I went with him. It was the first time I'd been to the Tate. It's really good.
I didn't go with them. I've never been to the Tate Gallery. Next time you go, can I come?
Oh, Natalie.
Of course you can.
I went to the Tate Gallery last week. I went to the Tate Gallery last week. I'd been there many times before. I'd been. I had been. I'd been there many times before.
You may remember that James Brady's hobby is photography. Well, today, he and Julia Marsh have gone to an art gallery to see an exhibition of photographs. But James has been in a bad mood all day.
What do you think of this, James?
It's okay.
James.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking about Tom Hall.
Because he received a prize for something you did?
Yes. The Drake bicycle campaign.
Trying to remember. Had anyone worked on that campaign before you?
No, they hadn't. And before I left MAP, I'd finished it. What do you think I should do?
Well, as I see it, there's nothing you can do. Except enjoy the exhibition.
Sorry. I think that's Ireland. Who's the photographer?
126. John Patrick Brady.
What? That's amazing.
Do you know him?
He's my cousin.
Had anyone worked on that campaign before you?
No, they hadn't. And before I left MAP, I'd finished it.
He'd finished it before he left MAP. He'd finished it. He had finished it. He'd finished it before he left MAP.
At the exhibition, James and Julia have found more photographs taken by James's cousin.
Here's another one. Aren't they wonderful?
They're very nice.
Now, what do you really think? Isn't he a great photographer?
He's good. Yes, he's very good. Is he a professional photographer, or is this his hobby?
I don't really know. He was still a student when I last saw him. He'd always been a keen photographer, like me. But he certainly hadn't had an exhibition when I left Ireland, I'm sure of that. He'd never even sold a photograph, as far as I can remember.
Why didn't he tell you about this exhibition?
Well, I haven't seen him for ages. I'm so pleased he's doing well.
And I'm so pleased you're in a better mood.
What do you mean?
Before you found your cousin's photo, she hadn't smiled all day.
Well, maybe I better go and ring Tom Hall while I'm still in a good mood.
Good idea. I'll join you later.
James left Ireland several months ago, but he was telling Julia about things that had happened before that. When James left Ireland, John hadn't had an exhibition. Hadn't had. Had not had. John hadn't had an exhibition. He'd never sold a photograph. He'd never sold. He had never sold. He'd never sold a photograph. And from photography to painting.
Sorry I'm late. I was at the hairdresser's.
That's okay. Ah! What happened to you?
I told you. I went to the hairdresser's.
The hairdressers?
Well, I hadn't been for ages, and my coat was getting too long.
And what happened?
Well, the hairdresser was new.
New?
I hadn't seen him before.
And?
Before I knew what he was doing, he'd cut it all off. It feels okay, but I think I'll get another coat before winter.
Yes, you'd better.
We're going now to the Science Museum in London. Our guide is Alison Porter. Let's start with an exhibition of old trains, cars and trams.
This is the Caerphilly Castle. When it was built in 1923, it was the most powerful locomotive in the country. No previous locomotives had had the pulling power of this one. And when it ended its working life in 1960, it had travelled nearly 2 million miles. This is a city tram from Glasgow in Scotland. It was built in 1901, but this is what it looked like in 1927. By then, it had been modernised 3 times. They had added a roof. The original tram had been open. This is Puffing Billy, one of the early steam locomotives. It was built in 1813 to pull wagons of coal from the mines to the River Tyne in the north of England. Before Puffing Billy was invented, horses had pulled the wagons of coal. You can see that the wheels are made of metal. Before 1813, they had used wood to make the wheels. This you will probably know, the Morris Mini Minor, better known as the Mini. The Mini was designed for modern city driving. They tried to make it as small as possible. Before this, designers of cars had placed the gearbox here, and they had put the engine this way. As you can see, in the Mini, the engine goes this way, and the gearbox is under it. This meant that the Mini was much shorter.
One of the most popular rooms at the Science Museum, especially with children, is the launch pad. It's an interactive exhibition where visitors can touch the exhibits.
Launchpad is our largest interactive gallery, and when it opened, it was the first of its type in this country. It has a number of exhibits. As many as 60 different interactive exhibits are in the gallery. During the week, you'll see school parties using the gallery with their teachers, but at weekends, families come and let the whole lot join in. I find the museum a very stimulating place. It's a place that's both a lot of fun and it's also a big learning environment. And I think that anyone that visits here will go away feeling that they've learned something from the experience and they can take that away with them.
Have you ever been to the Science Museum, Kevin?
No, but I'd like to.
Hold it right there. Hey, do you think I should have an exhibition of my photographs?
No.
No.
Oh.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Hello.
Hello.
Really? Is that right? Oh, how interesting. Well, it's been nice talking to you. Bye, Mom. Sorry, my mother. Hello.
Today, we talk about communication, especially communicating by telephone.
Using a phone is the same all over the world. You just have to say different things. To make a call, you dial the number. And you wait.
Ah, busy. He's talking to someone.
When the line is busy, engaged, you try again.
Ah. Hello. Can I speak to Bob Scott, please?
I'm sorry. I think you have the wrong number.
Ah, sorry. Hello. Could I speak to Bob Scott, please?
Bob Scott speaking.
Hi, Bob. This is Kevin Dutcher.
Kevin who?
Dutcher?
Sorry, Mr. Dutcher. I'm very busy right now. Could you call back later?
See? Easy.
Answer the phone.
No, you answer the phone.
Why should I?
Because I answered the phone yesterday, and it was for you.
Well, let it ring then.
I will.
I don't like them.
Everybody
they make a
can
noise.
use the telephone sometime.
Well,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Why not?
because I don't like it.
No, it isn't. Just a moment, please.
And you're stupid.
It's for you.
Well, I can't
Huh.
cut it off.
I'm afraid they aren't here at the moment. Can I help you? Really? You want me to answer 3 questions, and if I get them right, I win a holiday. Okay. It's a vegetable. Washington. I think it's in Italy. Really? Great. Chirpy. My name is Chirpy. Yes, I will. thank you. Whoopee! I've won a holiday in Honolulu.
James Brady wants to make a phone call to Tom Hall at MAP Advertising. But making a phone call isn't always easy.
Good afternoon. MAP Advertising. Would you hold the line, please?
Yes, of course. Come on.
Hello? Are you still there?
Yes.
Sorry to keep you waiting.
That's all right. Could you put me through to Tom Hall, please?
Who's calling?
James Brady.
Mr. Brady, this is Sandra. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Sandra, how are you?
Fine. I'm afraid Mr. Hall is in a meeting.
Oh. Well, could you put me through to Rita, please?
Certainly. Just a moment, I'll put you through. Sorry, Mr. Brady. Rita's phone is engaged.
Well, can I leave a message for Tom?
Of course.
Could he call me as soon...
Oh, just a moment. Mr. Hall is here now.
Oh, good. Thanks. Hello? Tom? Tom? Are you there? Oh, no.
Listen again to some of the telephone language that was used.
Would you hold the line, please? Hold the line.
Could you put me through to Tom Hall, please? Put me through.
Who's calling? Who's calling? I'll put you through. I'll put you through.
Eventually, James spoke to Tom Hall. James was angry because Tom had received a prize for an advertising campaign which James had managed before he left MAP. Now, Julia wants to know about the phone call.
What did you say to Tom?
I said I was very unhappy that he hadn't spoken to me about the prize.
And what did he say?
Well, he said he was sorry that I was unhappy. But he also said that the agency had won the prize and not an individual employee.
Well, he's right, of course.
I suppose so. Anyway, he said he wanted us to be friends. And he asked me if I would go and see him. Spend a weekend in the country.
And what did you say?
I said I would. And I asked if you could come with me.
Oh, did you?
Wouldn't you like a weekend in the country?
I'll think about it.
Oh, come on, it'll be fun.
I said I'd think about it. And now I've got some news for you.
What?
I've just phoned Carl. His company have accepted our campaign plan. We've got the contract to advertise the computer.
Great.
James told Julia about his conversation with Tom. When you tell someone about a conversation, the language changes. James said to Tom, "I am very unhappy." But this is what he told Julia.
I said I was very unhappy.
James said to Tom, "Can Julia come with me?"
I asked if you could come with me.
James talked to Julia about his phone call to Tom Hall. What was the last phone call you had?
The last telephone call I had was from a friend of mine. We were going to meet for lunch at 12, but she said she couldn't make it until 1:30.
The last phone call I had was from my daughter, and she was explaining that she wasn't going to be able to come home for the weekend.
The last phone call I had was this morning at 5:15 when a friend of mine rang me to tell me that a friend of ours had just had a baby boy.
Last night, my friend Jessica called me and asked if she could borrow an outfit to wear to school the next day.
In Britain, if there is an emergency, the telephone number you have to dial is 999. The operator then asks if you want police, fire, or ambulance. If you ask for the ambulance service, you might speak to Michelle Redfern. Michelle answers the telephone at the London Ambulance Control Room. What happens when someone dials 999?
When somebody dials 999, they'll speak to a British Telecom operator. The operator will ask the caller what service they require, either police, fire brigade or ambulance. The caller then will say ambulance service. The operator, that's the British Telecom operator, will then connect them with the ambulance service. She will then say, "You are connected to the London Ambulance Service. Go ahead." As a London Ambulance Service operator, I would then say, "London Ambulance, can I help you? What is wrong?"
Hello, London Ambulance, can I help you? Yes, what can I do for you?
Okay, ambulance service. Hello, ambulance service.
Hello, London Ambulance, can I help you? 12 Edric House, Page Street.
Okay, that's Peterborough Road.
Hold on, what area of London is that?
The information you want from a caller is the correct location. That is very important. You need to know where they actually are.
Yeah, what's the address, sir? 36 where? Larch. L-A-R-C-H. Close, and that's where, sir? SW. Southwest 12.
Okay, so what's the address? Flat 11. Right, 61 Kingsgate Road, Northwest 6.
Once you've actually got the correct information, then you then find out what is wrong, why they need an ambulance. If you can help, give advice over the phone and get an ambulance to them as soon as you can.
Do you remember any of today's calls?
I received a call from a doctor's receptionist, and she said to me that a patient had walked to the surgery with a heart attack.
London Ambulance, can I help you? Is this an immediate ambulance? And the doctor's name?
I received a 999 call this morning from a midwife, and she said that a lady was in labour. And she told me the name and the address.
Yeah, what's the address?
I also asked her how far gone she was in pregnancy, and she told me she was full-term in pregnancy.
Is she full-term?
Right, what's the address then?
Okay, and contractions?
I also asked her, has she had contractions? And she told me she was having them 3 to 5 minutes.
Oh, we'd better get there pretty quick then.
And that she was to go into the London hospital in Whitechapel.
Actually, can you just hold the line one moment? Let me just check this out. Western Street. Okay, we'll get someone along to you as soon as we can. All right, bye-bye.
The main aim of my job is to help the public and get them the ambulance there as soon as we can in the shortest time possible.
Is she conscious? She isn't. Is she breathing okay? Well, can you find out for me, please? She isn't. Yeah, what colour are her lips? What colour are her lips? Are her lips? Right, are you prepared to do artificial resuscitation or not? Yeah, but are you prepared to do resuscitation?
The job satisfaction I get is actually knowing that I could have saved a life. And that is why I do the job.
I always wondered who answered emergency calls.
Is there anything else?
No?
No, Mom. Natalie wasn't talking to you. She asked us if there was anything else. Goodbye.
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 No, I wasn't saying goodbye to you, Mom. I wasn't. So, how's Uncle Brian doing?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Today, we talk about travel.
We go to a travel agent's.
But we say goodbye to James and Julia.
Travel. Suppose you're travelling by rail. There are lots of things that you need to know. Where to buy a ticket, where the train leaves from, and so on. How do you ask for that information?
Well, you say, "Excuse me, where can I buy a ticket?" Where can I buy a ticket? Or, can you tell me where I can buy a ticket? Can you tell me where I can buy a ticket? Then there's this question. Where does the train leave from? Where does the train leave from? Or, do you know where the train leaves from? Do you know where the train leaves from?
Julia Marsh and James Brady are travelling today. They're going to a town called Banbury to see Tom Hall. They've decided to go by train. The only problem is, James played tennis yesterday and he hurt his ankle.
I don't know which platform we want. Do you?
It's platform 2, I think. But I'm not sure if it's the same at weekends.
Excuse me.
Yes?
Do you know where the Banbury train leaves from?
Yes. Platform 1.
Is platform 1 on this side?
No. It's the last platform. Over there.
Oh. Excuse me. Could you help me, please?
Of course. But I must deliver this parcel first. Would you mind waiting a moment?
No. Not at all. Thank you.
Let's listen again to some of the things they said.
I don't know which platform we want.
I'm not sure if it's the same at weekends.
Could you help me, please?
Of course.
Now back to James and Julia at the station.
Can you manage?
Yes, thank you.
Will you be all right now?
Yes, I think so. It was very kind of you to help us.
Not at all.
Thank you very much indeed.
It's a pleasure. Oops.
Oh, no, we've forgotten to buy the tickets.
Excuse me.
Yes?
Can you tell me where the ticket office is, please?
Yes. It's right over there. Opposite platform 12.
Oh, no.
It's all right. I'll go.
Did you notice the way Julia and James thanked the man?
It was very kind of you to help us.
Not at all.
Thank you very much indeed.
It's a pleasure.
Excuse me.
Yes?
Can you tell me which way north is?
North? North is that way. But you shouldn't go north. I'm travelling south for the winter.
Is it hot or cold in the south?
I'm not sure, but I think it's hot. That's why I'm going south. I know that it's cold in the north.
Ah, thank you for your help. Well, time to go.
But that's north.
Yes, I know.
James and Julia are still at the station, waiting for their train.
What are you reading?
A book about India.
Well, I've always wanted to go there. I read a wonderful book about India when I was a boy. I don't know who wrote it. It was called The Forgotten Land. What's that one about?
The writer describes a journey through India. He travelled by slow train, by boat. He even went 200 kilometres by taxi.
That sounds wonderful. I'd love to do something like that.
I wonder if I would like it.
I think you would. Maybe we could go there together.
Together? You and me on a slow train through India? I'm not a very good travelling companion.
I'm sure you'd love it.
Would I, James?
Yes, you would.
India. With you. I wonder.
I'm afraid that's the last we'll see of James and Julia. I wonder if they'll go to India. I hope so.
If you had the chance, which unusual or exotic place would you go to?
If I had the opportunity, I think I'd like to go to Tahiti.
I'd go to Thailand.
Oh, I'd love to go to Africa. I would love to go to Tanzania and spend some time maybe in the area of Kilimanjaro.
If I had a chance, I would probably go to Jamaica.
I think somewhere in the Far East.
I would go to Hawaii, because the weather would be warm, the beaches would be nice.
Kuoni is a travel agency in England that specialises in long-distance holidays to exotic places. Maria Paul works for Kuoni. She describes some of the holidays they offer.
Kuoni offers some very exciting tours. We go to some quite unusual places that possibly people haven't heard too much about. Little islands like Koh Samui. We go to places like the Maldive Islands. Lots of different islands with very different characters, different things to offer everyone. Everything from a particularly deluxe island like Karumba down to tiny little islands with just very basic accommodation, restaurants with sand floors, that type of thing. And then there's completely the other end of the market, princess cruises around the Caribbean, the ultimate in luxury. The customers can ask for absolutely anything and we'll provide it, but I think probably the most popular destinations overall are Thailand, Hong Kong, Barbados in the Caribbean, although other Caribbean islands also do very well, Egypt is always popular. A lot of people are fascinated by Egypt and the culture. The Nile cruises in particular, always very full.
What questions do Maria's clients ask?
Usually the first question is this available? Normally they have a fair idea of what they want, although they quite often can be persuaded to choose something different if their first option isn't available. So you're interested in a Far East holiday. Do you know where exactly? Have you got some idea of where you'd like to go?
Well, we were thinking of something like Bali or one of the exotic islands in that area.
Clients can ask all kinds of questions. Everything from how long is the flight, what is the movie on the flight, what kind of meals are served. It does all seem to be available.
Something I forgot to ask. Would you mind arranging for us to have some vegetarian food on the aeroplane?
Yes, certainly, that's no problem at all.
Thank you very much.
Clients quite often want to know exactly how many stars a hotel is, what grade of hotel it is, exactly what the facilities are.
Is it a high-rise hotel?
No, none of the buildings are higher than the height of the palm trees, which is rather nice, I think. Working in the travel business, you find that every day is different. You don't know what the client is going to want. When they come through the door, they could ask for anything. They could ask for a rail ticket, or they could ask for the most wonderful exotic holiday. Your flight will leave on the 21st of June, as I said, via Jakarta to Denpasar. And then we have 14 nights on a room-only basis in the Bali Sol. Is that the type of thing you were looking for?
Well, that sounds terrific.
Yes, that sounds fine.
Okay, and can you tell me how you'd like to pay?
By credit card, please.
Certainly. Every day is different, completely different. It doesn't get boring. I know people that have been in the travel business for 20, 25 years, and they still get excited about traveling. They don't get blasé about traveling to the airport and going off on a trip. It's not an everyday thing. It's always exciting.
I think I need a holiday.
So do I. Do you know what exotic place I'd go to?
No.
A desert island. A place where there are no other people.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Hey, wait for me. Goodbye.
Hello, I'm David Riley.
Hello, I'm Natalie Forbes.
Hi, I'm Kevin Dutcher.
Today, we look at politics and elections.
We look at ways of expressing opinions.
And we meet this man, Neil Kinnock, a famous British politician. Politics, opinions, and elections.
In an election, people choose a new government. They vote for candidates from political parties. In Great Britain, there's an election every 5 years.
In the United States, we vote for a new president every 4 years. I've been voting for 7 years. I've voted in 2 presidential elections. What about you?
Well, I've been voting for about 14 years now. I've voted in 1, 2, 3 elections.
I've only voted in one election.
Who did you vote for?
That's a secret.
An election. In an election, you vote for a candidate. You vote for a candidate.
I've voted in 2 elections. I've been voting for 7 years. I've been voting. I have been voting. I've been voting for 7 years.
Who did you vote for at the last election?
I'm not prepared to answer that.
I voted for the Conservative Party.
I'd rather not answer that question.
I voted Liberal at the last general election.
As a public servant, I probably shouldn't say that.
I voted for the Labour Party.
Well, I inherited a title from my grandfather, so I'm what they call a peer, and therefore I don't have actually any vote in general elections, but I do vote in the House of Lords.
Have you always voted for the same party?
I voted for the same party for the last few general elections.
I haven't always voted for the same party.
I've always voted for the Labour Party.
I've been living in this forest for a long time, and I've seen a lot of changes. But this new road is a very bad idea. I'm against it.
So am I. Here, 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 here.
The new road means more people, and people bring food. I'm for the new road.
Well, we all need food, so I think I'm for it too. As I see it, it doesn't matter if you're for the new road or against the new road.
It doesn't matter.
What do you mean it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter because the road has already been built.
Where?
I haven't seen it.
What are you talking about?
What motorway?
Talking nonsense.
He doesn't know what he's talking about. He certainly doesn't.
Here are some ways to express an opinion.
This new road is a very bad idea. I'm against it. I'm against it. I don't agree with the idea.
The new road means more people. I'm for it. I'm for it. I agree with the idea.
As I see it, it doesn't matter if you're for the new road or against the new road. As I see it, in my opinion, from my point of view.
The 3 main political parties in Britain are the Conservative Party, the Labour Party, and the Liberal Democrats. Neil Kinnock was the leader of the Labour Party from 1983 to 1992. He resigned as leader after the 1992 general election, but he is still a Member of Parliament. We asked him to describe the British political system.
Now, Parliament is divided into 2 houses. The House of Commons, which is entirely elected. Everybody in the House of Commons is an elected Member of Parliament, and they're elected from 650 constituencies in the United Kingdom. Constituencies vary a little in size, but most of them are around about 60,000 electors. And the political parties put candidates up for election, and the election is decided by first past the post. That is to say, the candidate with the most votes gets elected. The House of Lords is a non-elected chamber of the Parliament, and its roots go back for 600 years.
What does he think of the House of Lords?
I think it's ridiculous in any democracy for people to be able to gain a place in Parliament simply because of the fortunes of birth. So I would like to get rid of their hereditary peers. I don't mean execute them under a guillotine. I do mean deny them the power to sit.
What part does the Queen or King play in this system?
For 300 years, Britain has had a constitutional monarchy. It is the Queen in Parliament who begins each legislative year in Parliament with the Queen's speech from the throne.
My government will maintain a substantial aid programme to reduce poverty in developing countries. Its objectives will include promoting good government, sensible economic policies, and respect for human rights.
The Queen's speech is written for her by the government and lists the general important items of legislation and policy which the government intends to put before the legislature, before the Parliament, in the forthcoming year.
Right. Let's see if I can remember all that. As in many other countries, British people vote in an election for a candidate to represent their local area. This area is called a constituency. And Britain is divided into 650 constituencies. Each constituency elects an MP, a member of Parliament, to the House of Commons, which is one of the Houses of Parliament. The other is the House of Lords. Members of the House of Lords are not elected.
Let's look now at a day in Parliament. In the morning, MPs answer letters and work on committees. The main business of the House of Commons begins in the afternoon. What happens?
The House of Commons begins to sit as a full assembly at 2:30 in the afternoon. And on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, there's a question time.
Mr. Speaker, at the time that the Prime Minister said that if his policies weren't hurting, they weren't working, did he realize that those policies would cause the longest recession since the 1930s?
We have taken action in order to ensure that we come out of this recession in a way that will ensure sustained recovery. And as the Governor of the Bank of England said only yesterday, the conditions are now in place to underpin the sustained recovery.
Mr. Speaker.
After the question time, the House will move to the consideration of a motion. It might be a piece of legislation, a bill, or it might be simply a motion of the House. And there will be a debate. Some members of Parliament will be involved in the debate, usually around 20 or 25. Some others will sit in to listen to the debate and take the chance to question ministers on the issue that's under debate.
May I ask him this question? If suitably qualified staff have been difficult to attract into Aldermaston because of the existence of higher salaries in the private sector, will not the introduction of a private contractor have the effect of increasing the costs of this programme?
Well, I was quite sympathetic to what the Honourable Gentleman was saying until he got to the last line. But the point that I've made, and I sought to make to the Honourable Gentleman, is that I believe that with the best possible production management expertise,
the House will continue to sit until 10 o'clock, but more often than not, the House goes on well past that, because there is always secondary business, secondary legislation, resolutions coming before the House, which mean that the House of Commons can quite normally go through till 1 o'clock in the morning, and on, I don't know, 20 occasions in a year, sometimes grow into 4 or 5 o'clock, or even sit all night. I've done that many times.
Do British MPs have to work all night?
Well, Neil Kinnock says he's done that many times.
But he has been an MP for more than 20 years.
But he says they work at least until 10 o'clock at night, and often much later.
That's true.
Neil Kinnock has been an MP since 1970. How does he look back on his career?
I've been involved in politics since I was about 15. I've fought as the candidate for my constituency every election since 1970. So that makes one in 1970, two in 1974, one in 1979, then again in 1983, and in 1987, and in 1992. I'm not sure how many that makes altogether. What I have to say is, I think I'm right in saying the majority has gone up slightly every time, which makes me very happy.
Has he made any mistakes?
I've made many mistakes. I don't think that there's a person alive of 50 years of age who hasn't made mistakes. And any politician with a 22, 23-year career in politics who says they haven't made mistakes, they're either too stupid to recognize them or too arrogant to accept them. So I've made mistakes. There are occasions on which I've spoken too long. There are occasions in which I've associated myself with causes that proved to be the wrong causes. And there are times when I would have liked to have acted much faster than I did, but a series of circumstances prevented that. And so in that 23 years, I don't think I've made more errors than most other people, but I've certainly made them.
That's interesting. A politician who admits that he's made some mistakes.
Yes, it's unusual.
Here are some things Neil Kinnock said about his political career.
I've fought every election since 1970. I've made many mistakes. I don't think I've made more errors than most other people.
Right. Kevin, I'd like to know about the American political system. I've never understood it.
Do you have a couple of hours?
Yes.
Are you sitting comfortably?
Yes.
Right. Well, there are two main parties, the Republicans and the Democrats. And there are two main houses. Goodbye. The House of Representatives and the Senate. Now, the Senate has two members.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Today, we look at rules and regulations. Things you are allowed to do and things you are not allowed to do.
We talk about schools.
And we visit this place, a secondary school in England.
Schools, of course, have lots of rules and regulations. At my school, for example, boys had to wear white shirts. You weren't allowed to wear a shirt that was any other colour.
Really? At my school, they didn't let you go into the classroom if the teacher wasn't there.
At my school, you were allowed to wear what you liked. And they let you go where you liked, too.
Nowadays, some things are different, but some things are the same. When I was at school, you weren't allowed to wear coloured shirts. You weren't permitted to. Nowadays, at some schools, you're allowed to wear anything you like. You're permitted to.
When I was at school, they didn't let you go into the classroom if the teacher wasn't there. And it's still the same. They don't let you go into the classroom if the teacher isn't there.
What about your school? Were there any rules that you didn't like?
I can't remember liking any of them. I disliked all of them.
I didn't like having to wear short trousers till I was 13, especially on cold winter days.
Where I grew up in the Rio Grande Valley, it was so hot that the temperature never got below 60 degrees. And they wouldn't allow us to wear shorts, and I thought that was kind of ridiculous.
It always irritated me that only staff were supposed to walk through the front entrance of the school, so I always walked through the front entrance of the school and got in trouble for it.
I was fortunate in that I went to a school with no rules.
Okay, are you ready?
No.
Come on, it's easy. Just do this. Now you try. You're supposed to start flapping your wings before you take off.
Sorry.
Try again.
Oh, I see.
Honestly, you're not supposed to stop flying when you're in the air. You're supposed to keep going.
Oh, look, I can do it.
That's very good.
Is it all right if I do it again?
Not now. Let's wait until tomorrow.
Supposed to do and not supposed to do.
You're not supposed to stop. You're not supposed to stop flying when you're in the air. You're supposed to keep going. You're supposed to keep going.
In Britain, there are some secondary schools where pupils must pass an exam to get in. They're called grammar schools. Wickham High School is a grammar school for girls. To find out about the school, we'll hear from 3 people. The head teacher, a teacher of Spanish, and first of all, a pupil in the 6th form, who's 18 years old and in her final year.
Wickham High School is a secondary school. It's for girls only, and it's a grammar school, which means we have to pass an exam before we can enter the school.
The girls tend to sit an exam at 12 in their primary schools, and depending on the results of that exam, we take in about the top 30% of intelligence levels.
There are only 145 grammar schools in the country out of the several thousand secondary schools in the country, so it isn't typical of secondary education in this country.
There are about 1,000 pupils. There's a main school and a 6th form, which run separately.
If we go back to when we were looking at anorexia, what were the causes we looked at? We looked at several. Who can just remember them? Stress, okay, Horace.
In the main school, there is a uniform. Pupils are supposed to wear a blue and white striped shirt. In the 2nd and 3rd years, they're supposed to wear a navy jumper, and in the 4th and 5th years, it's a burgundy jumper. It's a specially designed school jumper with the school emblem on, and they have to wear a navy skirt. At the moment, they let us wear any type of shoe as long as it's black and smart. But when I first joined the school, they made us choose between 5 different pairs of shoes, and we had to wear one of those.
There are also regulations about what they should wear in their hair. They have to wear a certain colour of ribbon or hair ornament, and they're supposed to keep their hair out of their eyes for safety reasons.
Okay, so we've got 500 over B minus B equals 40.
In the 6th form, they let us wear what we want to, but it has to be smart, and we have to wear skirts, but we're allowed to wear jewellery and things like that.
At Wickham High School, there are rules about what you can wear.
Girls are supposed to wear blue and white striped shirts, but they can wear any kind of shoes.
As long as they're black.
But when girls reach the 6th form, that's the last 2 years at the school, things change.
They let us wear what we want to. We're allowed to wear jewellery. But we have to wear skirts.
We've heard about the rules for what the pupils must wear. The school also has a lot of rules for how they must behave, what they're supposed to do at lunchtime, what they're allowed to do in study periods, how they should walk in the school, and how they must behave In the classroom.
Pupils are supposed to stand up when a teacher walks into the classroom and to remain standing up until the teacher tells them to sit down.
Buenos días, Dorce.
Buenos días, señora Ryder.
Sentaos. Bien. Ser y estar. Ser y estar. Let's see who remembers. Nahida, ser, por favor.
That is the only rule that they must do. Other than that, of course, follow what the teacher is saying. Listen to instructions.
Now, ¿eres inglés o americano? ¿Eres inglés o americano? Catherine? Muy bien.
Wherever the girls move inside the building, there are fairly narrow corridors and staircases. So girls must walk on the left at all times. They're not allowed to run in the corridor at any time. And they must be very careful when they're climbing stairs to keep to the left. We have to have quite strict rules also about movement outside because we have quite a few narrow walkways, and so therefore also there are areas where the girls are only allowed to walk in one direction. So there is one way into a building and another way out, and they're not allowed to turn around in the wrong direction.
The main school have to stay on site during the lunch hour, but the sixth form are allowed to go outside school as long as they're back within the hour. We're not allowed to go down to the bottom of the field, and there's another area around the side of one of the buildings where we're not supposed to go either.
The perimeters of the school field are actually out of view from the main buildings, and girls may not go beyond an area where the ground dips down and they're out of sight. This is for their own safety, as well as for us to make sure that they're not breaking the no smoking rule. The rules about smoking in the school are strict. No girl is permitted to smoke under any circumstances, either in school or on her way to and from school.
In the sixth form, there are 3 areas in which we can stay during the study periods. We can either go to the library, and that's a silent area, so we're not allowed to speak at all, or we can go to the study room. We're permitted to eat and to talk quietly in there, or we can stay in the common room, and we can do anything in there. We can make as much noise as we like.
Let me just fall at your feet.
I think the ability to conform to rules, provided those rules are accepted as reasonable and sensible, is part of being a law-abiding citizen and being able to fit in to whatever social structure you're in. I see no reason why girls should not question rules, and I would encourage them to do that. I think it does prepare them for the world of work, where there are even stricter rules and regulations in many ways, particularly in health and safety, and things that one can, must, or must not do.
The head teacher explaining why she thinks rules are a good thing.
Why do they have to walk on the left?
I don't know. Maybe it's because we have to drive on the left in Britain.
Oh, yeah.
When they get to the sixth form, the girls have more choice in everything. For instance, in their free time, there are 3 places they can go: the library, the study room, and the common room.
In the library, we're not allowed to speak at all. In the study room, we're permitted to eat and talk quietly. In the common room, we can make as much noise as we like.
I have a question.
What's that?
Why do you have to drive on the left in Britain?
Well,
It's a long story. Goodbye.
goodbye.
Bye.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Today, we look at training. That's work training. The training you need to do a particular job.
And we meet this man, Michael Killingsworth, who trains flight attendants for American Airlines.
Work training tells you what you're supposed to do in a particular job.
What you should do and what you shouldn't do.
If you're working in a shop or an office with customers or clients, there are some things you must remember to do and some things you must remember not to do. You should be polite. You should always be polite. You shouldn't be rude. You should never be rude. And remember, the customer is always right.
Work training is designed to show you what to do and what not to do. But can you be trained to do a job? Or is experience more important?
I think you need both training and experience.
I think experience is more important than training.
Training is the most important.
Oh, I'm a great believer in hands-on experience.
A person can be trained for a job, but they would do the job better with experience.
I think people can be trained to do a job as long as they're trained by people who are experienced.
Oh dear, oh dear.
What's the matter?
You shouldn't have done that.
Done what?
That smile. It's all wrong. You should have painted a big smile, not that little one.
But I like it.
I'm the teacher and you're just the student. You should do as I say. No, 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 no. You shouldn't have done it like that. Here, let me show you. And these eyes should be bigger. There. That's how you should do it. Don't you agree?
Yes, sir.
Remember, Leonardo, people want happy paintings.
Yes, sir.
Young people today have no idea. No idea at all. No, 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 no. You shouldn't have done that, Michelangelo.
This is the way the teacher told his student that he had done something wrong.
You shouldn't have done it like that. You should have painted a big smile.
Do you know what flight attendants are? They're the people who greet you, say hello, when you get on a plane. And later they bring you food and drink. American Airlines train their flight attendants at a special center in Dallas, Texas. Michael Killingsworth is the director of the training program for flight attendants. What does the training involve?
Training for an American Airlines flight attendant requires 6.5 weeks. The training program includes a great deal of emphasis on emergency procedures, food service procedures, general procedures, and a great deal of customer service.
Captain Masick, First Officer Smith, and Flight Engineer Hughes has informed me that our flying time to Seattle today will be 3 hours at an altitude of 31,000 feet. Seattle is reported with fair weather. Now we'd like to direct your attention to the video screens located throughout the aircraft for a brief message about our safety features on our 767.
Ian, what should have been the next announcement?
After he did his welcome board, I think we should have done our safety video introduction.
Okay. He did do safety. Did he introduce the crew?
Yes.
My name is?
The basic qualities that we look for in a flight attendant are flexibility, personality, poise, self-control. There's no way, even in 6.5 weeks of training, that we can tell you every single thing that would occur in the life of a flight attendant. There's a lot of situations that we'll share with you that our own personal experiences we'll share with you. We'll try to cover as much as we can, but because the job of a flight attendant is so diverse, there's no way we could answer every single what-if question.
No. The question was, should you stack the nuts? No, you should not stack the nuts. Does it look very professional if the nuts are just stacked on top of each other? No, we want them to be presented very professionally.
So flight attendants receive 6.5 weeks of work training.
Only 6.5 weeks?
That's right. And as Michael says, it's impossible to teach them everything they need to know in such a short time. A combination of work training and experience is vital for the job. During the 6.5 weeks, they receive training in many different aspects of the work.
Food service procedures. How you're supposed to serve food. Emergency procedures. What you're supposed to do in an emergency. Customer service. How you should serve the needs of passengers.
Michael talked about the training program. Now let's hear about the different jobs flight attendants have to do during a flight. What are they supposed to do first?
When passengers are boarding the aircraft, it's very important that an appropriate greeting is used by the flight attendant. An appropriate salutation or greeting, such as good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome aboard, or we are happy to have you. I am happy to see you.
Good evening. How are you?
Just fine, thank you.
Wonderful. All right. If you cross over, go down that aisle, your seat is on the left.
Okay, thank you.
Enjoy the flight.
I stress to my students that it's very important
Welcome.
that
How are you?
you understand that communication is not just the way you speak. It's verbal and it's also nonverbal. And by means of nonverbal, the use of your body language is so important. What do you do with your hands? What do you do with your arms? If you stand with your arms crossed, you've closed yourself off. You're a closed-in person and you're not approachable, versus having your hands open. When your hands are open or at your side, you're more approachable. You're open to conversation.
Welcome aboard.
Once you take off, the flight attendant will then perform their actual service procedures, food service, which is, and sometimes it's just a beverage service. But there's always a way of enhancing that service. It's not just delivering a beverage. It's not just handing out pretzels or delivering a sandwich. It's how you do it.
Miss McIntyre, may I offer you a first-class menu? And Mr. Smith, a menu for you? I'll be back momentarily to take your preference, okay?
It's important to remember to use proper terminologies such as, may I offer you a beverage? May I offer you a snack or a meal? What else can I get you? Is there anything else I can get you?
You're welcome.
One of the most precise parts of the training is how to serve meals to first-class passengers on international flights. At American Airlines, this is called the International Flagship Service.
When we teach the International Flagship Service, it's very specific how everything is done.
Always remember to set two passengers at the same time. You must position yourself between the passengers. The table setting will begin by placing the bread plate down. You're supposed to place both plates down, the passenger's upper left-hand corner. Once the plate is down, you will add the ramekin of butter. Next will be the service plate. Don't forget to place the eagle at 12 o'clock. When placing the salt and pepper, don't forget to be sure that the pepper is on the right. And remember to place the glass at 1 o'clock.
Once that procedure is completed, we have what we call a phase 3, and we call this the phase that pays. You get out and you get into the cabin and get to know the passengers and get to talk to them.
So how's things going here today?
Great.
You enjoying your flight?
Yeah, we were just discussing an African safari.
An African safari. Wow,
Have you
must
ever
be
been?
nice. No, not yet, but I'm hoping someday to get there.
At the end of the flight, as the passengers are leaving, It's important to use phrases such as, thank you for being with us today, thank you for choosing us, it was nice meeting you, it was great to see you, it was nice getting to know you. Enjoy your day. I hope to see you again.
There are a lot of little things that a flight attendant must remember to do. Here are some examples.
You're supposed to place both plates down at the same time. Don't forget to place the eagle at 12 o'clock. In other words, when the plate is on the tray, the eagle should be facing away from the passenger. Remember to place the glass at 1 o'clock. In other words, the glass should be near the eagle.
That job is more difficult than it looks.
Yes, so much to remember to do.
That's right. So much that you mustn't forget. Like putting the eagle on the plate at 1 o'clock.
You've forgotten already. You're supposed to put the eagle at 12 o'clock.
No, you're supposed to put the glass at 12 o'clock. No?
No.
I don't think David could be a flight attendant, do you? Goodbye.
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 Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Today, we look at the world around us.
Especially places which are very hot or very cold.
And we talk to this man, Matt Dickinson, an explorer who has experienced extreme temperatures in different parts of the world.
Have you ever been anywhere that was very hot or very cold?
Coldest place is Helsinki in midwinter, and I think it was -20.
Oh, I lived in Madras, India for almost 3 years, and it was extremely hot there.
The coldest would probably be parts of northern Russia, when it was -26, -27. It may not be cold for the locals, but it felt very cold indeed to me.
The hottest place I've ever been to is the deserts of New Mexico in the United States, where it can get up to 40 degrees centigrade quite often. But it's a dry heat, and you don't feel it quite so much.
The hottest place I've ever been to is India. When I was there, the temperature was over 40 degrees Celsius. However, I did spend most of my time in air-conditioned hotels.
The coldest place I've ever been to is Sweden. When I was there, it was 25 degrees below zero. Although it didn't feel cold because it was sunny and it wasn't windy. And of course, there was central heating everywhere.
That's the difference between travelers and explorers. Travelers don't want to be too hot or too cold, whereas explorers visit the hottest and coldest and most dangerous places on Earth because they want to experience the heat, the cold, and the danger.
That's right. Being very hot or very cold can be exciting. However, not everyone would agree.
Oh, it's freezing.
What?
It's freezing. I can't put up with this at all.
Oh, it's not as cold as last year.
What? I think it's much colder than last year.
No, it isn't. Although I admit the wind is a bit stronger. Come on, let's go for a swim.
A swim? Here? You must be joking. The water's like ice.
It's not. It's a lot warmer than last year. Come on.
I'm not a very good swimmer.
Of course you are. You swim much better than I do.
No, I don't.
You're not enjoying this holiday, are you?
No. not much.
And I was looking forward to coming here so much.
Listen again to these ways of comparing weather conditions.
It's not as cold as last year.
I think it's much colder than last year.
Much colder. Or, here's another way to compare.
It's a lot warmer than last year.
There are still professional explorers who travel to remote parts of the world. People who enjoy the experience of extreme temperatures and dangerous conditions. We're going to meet such a person. His name is Matt Dickinson. First of all, Matt talks about an expedition to the Namib Desert in southwest Africa, one of more than 40 expeditions he has made. So, how far has he traveled?
I believe that I've traveled about 1 million miles in my traveling career since 1976, and every single one of them has been a great pleasure and of fantastic interest to me. Last year, I was fortunate enough to be invited to join an expedition to cross the Namib Desert in southwest Africa, and it took me into extremes of heat that I've never encountered before.
We're 115 degrees.
115?
Check it out.
In the shade. Our journey was 5.5 days from start to finish, and we had to carry an enormous quantity of water to enable us to survive. It's a bit like carrying a refrigerator on your back. Yeah. It's that sort of weight.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, what have we got here? That's about 36 kilograms. Now, the decision we made was to walk for 2 or 3 hours in the morning and 2 or 3 hours in the late afternoon, and then rest through the rest of the day underneath a space blanket. And what we did was to stretch it between a rock surface and the desert floor, and then shelter underneath it in the shade for the hottest part of the day. In that place, nothing can survive. We walked through a great forest, and one associates trees with leaves and shade and life and energy, and all that was left were the skeletons of the trees, just the simple bare branches. It was an eerie and rather intimidating place.
What an extraordinary place. As Matt said, the trees were like skeletons.
All that was left were the skeletons of the trees. No leaves, no shade, no life, no energy.
The Namib Desert is the hottest place that Matt has visited. He said that it had
extremes of heat that I've never encountered before.
Now, Matt Dickinson tells us about a completely different expedition, a trip down a river in Tibet. The problem is, it's a white water river, a very fast-moving river.
One of the most frightening moments I think I've ever had came when I was invited to join an American and Indian team on the Brahmaputra River, which is a whitewater river. It comes crashing out of the Himalayas. It's extremely turbulent and full of rocks, and at some stages you can see no blue water at all. It's completely white and very, very dangerous. The objective was to raft for 120 miles down the river on a stretch of the river that, as far as we knew, had never been rafted before. And it began at a very remote village right on the border of China and India. we set off, and for several days it would be true to say that our expedition was almost completely out of control. There's a limit to the amount of maneuverability of a small rubber raft when it's being tossed from wave to wave in the grip of a ferocious river like the Brahmaputra. Now, this river offers an extreme environment in every sense. It's extremely cold because the water has come from the meltwater snows of Tibet. And we knew from the start that the turbulent, freezing cold conditions of the Brahmaputra could give us some serious problems. Now, we were extremely lucky on several occasions to avoid being tipped out of the boat, but we all knew that eventually disaster might strike, and it was only a matter of time as we bobbed our way down the river, often out of control, that some mishap would occur. Well, it did. We went into a wave which was far too big for our rubber raft to survive, and I felt the extreme rush of adrenaline as the freezing cold water bit into us, and I was plunged into the water as the boat went over. I felt the air being sucked out of my lungs, and as I came out of the swirling white water into which we'd been plunged, I was gasping for breath and completely disorientated. And then it was the horrifying experience of being swept completely out of control with our raft upside down the Brahmaputra River to we knew not what fate.
Phew, he really knows how to enjoy himself.
And did you notice that he was filming when he fell off the raft? A very dangerous expedition, and you can tell by the way he described it.
The river was extremely cold and extremely turbulent. The expedition was almost completely out of control.
We've heard Matt describe the journey across the desert and the whitewater rafting. But how does he compare the dangers of the two expeditions?
There are many differences between the desert and the savage and frightening forces of a whitewater river. The desert is not as terrifying. The river has a great deal of noise. There's the rushing of the water. There's the grinding and rumbling of great rocks, perhaps the size of a house, as they are pushed underneath the surface of the river downstream by the force of the water. But each place has its own dangers, and each place can be life-threatening if things go wrong. And I think that's the fascinating thing about extremes of environment, that the heat, the aridity, the all-embracing oven of the desert is just as dangerous as the savage forces of a whitewater river. But to be in that environment is a completely different experience, and it requires a completely different approach, both mentally and physically, in order to survive.
So, which place was more dangerous, the desert or the whitewater river? Matt's opinion was this.
Each place has its own dangers. The desert is not as terrifying as the river. But the heat of the desert is just as dangerous as the force of the river.
Well, I suppose India isn't the hottest place in the world after all.
And Sweden isn't as cold as I thought it was.
And traveling on the London Underground isn't really that uncomfortable. Goodbye.
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 Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Today, we look at life at work.
We talk about working conditions.
And we meet this man. Bill McIntosh, the manager of an oil platform in the North Sea.
What kind of work do you do? Do you like it?
I work as a press officer for the Bank of England, so what I have to do is to explain the bank's policies to the press and the public in general and answer their questions. I like explaining things, so I enjoy my job.
I'm a student and I don't particularly like going to school.
I'm a professional footballer and manager, and I love it.
I'm a teacher and I like it because I find it very stimulating and I enjoy working with people, particularly young people.
I'm an archaeologist. I enjoy my job. I enjoy the thrill of discovering things that have lain hidden for hundreds or thousands of years, and I enjoy trying to tell others about it as well.
What was your first job, Kevin?
Well, when I was a student, I worked in a hotel during the vacation.
Why?
Why? So that I could make some money.
How much did you make?
Not much. The wages were very low. I worked in a hotel so that I could make some money. But the wages were very low. Wages, or salary, or pay. That's the money you earn from your job.
The working conditions here are terrible. Terrible. They're so bad that I intend to complain to the management.
Excuse me.
Really?
Yes. I mean, the wages are awful.
May I say something?
Just a minute. We don't get any wages.
Exactly. And we never get a break.
We don't need a break. We're machines. We never get tired. We never go wrong.
But I demand the right to have a break. Let me finish. As I was saying, I demand the right to have a break.
We don't need a break. And we never go wrong. Never.
The working conditions weren't very good when I worked in the hotel either. I worked for 10 hours a day. I worked for so long that I never had time to do anything else, except sleep. And the meal breaks were so short that I never had time to eat anything. I was hungry all the time. And the wages were so low that I didn't save any money.
Kevin worked in a hotel so that he could earn some money. That was his reason for working there. But the wages were very low. The result was he didn't save any money at all.
Off the north coast of Scotland in the North Sea, there are oil platforms which work 24 hours a day, pumping oil and gas from under the sea. Bill McIntosh is the manager of a North Sea oil platform. Let's find out what the work of an oil platform is and how that work is organized.
The platforms that we work from produce oil and gas, and within the platform we make the oil and gas safe. We process it just a little. We then export it, as we call it, through a pipeline to shore. Once it gets to the shore, it's then loaded on a large tanker and taken to some other part of the world. When we're working offshore, we work what we call a shift pattern, and we work 2 weeks offshore, and then we come home for 2 weeks onshore. Typically, my day will start at 5 in the morning. I will be at my desk generally at about 5:30 or 6 in the morning. The day shift crew They will come on at 7, and they will work right through until 7 later that day. Breakfast, we normally have breakfast between 6 and 7:30, something like that. Lunch break is about 11:30 through to 12:30. And then the evening meal, which for the night shift is breakfast time, is 6:30 until 7:30. And then for the night shift crew, because bear in mind, an oil production platform runs 24 hours a day, then around 11:30 till 12:30 is the midnight meal. An oil production platform offshore is interesting because it's where you live as well as the place that you work. So you can't, unlike onshore, you can't drive home. So offshore, we have a gymnasium, for example, which has a multi-gym running machines and stuff like that. And we have snooker, billiards, table tennis. We have quite a variety of things. And we have a large cinema, and we take satellite television so we can get news virtually as it's happening. The normal working day offshore is 12 hours. That occasionally stretches to 15 hours, but the day itself is very demanding. The work itself is quite demanding. So there is usually only 3 or 4 hours at the most after the end of the shift to occupy yourself. People tend to be in bed at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. We look for as much of the home comforts as we can possibly get. So the accommodation that we have is very good. But importantly, the meals, and you are working a long day. It's a minimum of a 12-hour day. We're working an 84-hour week, and the food is commensurately good. Sometimes too much food.
They have to work 12 hours a day and 7 days a week.
Yes, but after 2 weeks, they get 2 weeks off. Here's how Bill McIntosh described the hours of work.
The work on the oil platform is done in shifts. There's the day shift, the men who work from 7 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night. And there's the night shift, the men that work through the night. Everybody on the platform works a 12-hour day and an 84-hour week.
The oil platform is situated close to the Arctic Circle. What are the hazards, the dangers of working there?
The particular platform that I actually work on, in fact, is in an area we know as the Shetland Basin, which is very much in the northern North Sea. Now that's exposed to quite a variety of climate, quite rapid climate changes as well. Now this is typically in the month of January, for example, we can get wind speeds in excess of 100 knots. The rain can be very heavy, the snow can be very heavy, and because we are only 4 degrees below the Arctic Circle, we can get quite a severe drop in temperature. The seas in these northern waters can really be quite violent. Typically we might have waves of around 12 or 15 meters in height. And they come in from the North Atlantic, and they're very powerful. It is particularly important to have firm and fixed safety procedures offshore. It is a potentially hazardous environment. Typically, no one can leave the accommodation to go out into the workplace unless they are properly attired. Now, that means, as a minimum, they will be wearing a safety helmet, flame-proof coveralls, protective eyeglasses, and steel protective boots.
Violent seas, rapid climate changes, and heavy rain and snow.
And the platform itself is so dangerous that the workers have to wear protective clothing.
They wear safety helmets so that their heads are protected against injury. They wear protective eyeglasses so that their eyes are protected against the freezing wind.
It's quite incredible that anyone wants to work there.
Yes, hard, dangerous work, long hours, freezing weather.
That's right. The work is so hard and the weather is so severe. Why does anyone want to work there?
There are a number of reasons for people wanting to work offshore. Clearly, because it's a difficult environment, then the pay scale is much greater, is much higher. There are a number of additional benefits to working offshore. One of the main ones, of course, is perhaps the free time that you can get. You do work the 2 weeks offshore, but you do get a clear 2 weeks onshore. Now, in addition to that, because it is a relatively hazardous environment, working offshore, then there are other benefits, pension benefits, medical benefits, which are perhaps a little better than you might ordinarily expect to get onshore.
So, now we know. As the work is so dangerous, there are a lot of special benefits.
And the pay is good, and there's a lot of time off.
I'm afraid it doesn't attract me.
No? I could see myself on one of those platforms, drilling for oil, fighting against the wind and the sea.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Man against nature, fighting the elements, the waves lapping up against my shoulders.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Today we look at sport.
And we talk to this man, Justin Fashanu, a professional footballer.
We all played different sports at school.
That's right. I played rugby at school. I didn't like it. I wish I'd played golf.
When I was at school, I played baseball. I wish I'd played tennis.
I did play tennis at school, and I won the school cup.
Congratulations.
Well done. I played rugby at school. I wish I'd played golf. I wish I had played golf. I wish I'd played golf.
I played baseball at school. I wish I'd played tennis.
Which sports did you play at school?
Rugby, cricket and basketball.
Tennis, netball, hockey, gymnastics, swimming.
High jumping, and I reached a county standard in that sport. I also played hockey, football and rugby.
I didn't play sports at school.
Which sports do you wish you'd played at school?
I wish I'd played tennis at school.
I wish I'd tried fencing, archery, sub-aqua diving.
I wish I'd played cricket at school.
I wish that I'd had the opportunity earlier in life to do more climbing.
I wish I could see the game. I can't see anything.
What a shame.
We're too small. I wish we were bigger.
I know. It's a pity. But I have an idea.
Hey, who are you?
I am here to give you 3 wishes.
3 wishes? Great. Well, I wish I could see the game.
Easy.
Great. But I wish we were a bit nearer.
Easy.
What are you doing here?
I wish you hadn't done that.
Don't worry. Oh, I wish I hadn't done that either.
We're too small. I wish we were bigger. I can't see anything. I wish I could see the game. That little boy was watching other people play sport. He was a spectator. We call a lot of spectators a crowd. Now, at a football match...
Wait a minute. What kind of football? There's American football, rugby football, soccer...
Oh, I mean soccer. We often call soccer football.
Ah. You were saying?
Yes. At a football match, the spectators go to watch two teams who play against each other. The winner is the team that scores more goals.
Or points, if it's American football or rugby.
Yes. The other team is the loser. And if both teams have the same number of goals, or points, it's a draw.
In winter, the English national sport is football. That's association football or soccer. Justin Fashanu is an English professional footballer. Here is how he describes his long and varied career in football.
When I was 15 and a half, I left school and I joined Norwich City Football Club in the First Division. I made my debut at 17.
17-year-old Justin Fashanu has only been a professional since Christmas Day. But this afternoon he gets his first game for Norwich City in the First Division.
My first appearance was against a team called West Bromwich Albion in the First Division, and they had 3 other black players playing for their team. And at that stage there was probably about 6 black professional footballers in the First Division, and so this was quite a unique thing in football to have 4 players on the same football field.
Davis. Peters came in.
It was fun. It was a big crowd, 25,000 people in Norwich, and I was playing with people who were heroes and role models and things. And we drew 2-2. I didn't manage to score, but it was fun. A lot of fun.
Fashanu! So close to making a name for himself in his first appearance.
I then moved to Nottingham Forest for £1 million at 19. And then I played 18, 19 times for England under-21 team. And we won, we're the first actually England team to win the European under-21 championships. I then managed to win an England B cap, and I was on the substitutes bench for a World Cup match against Romania.
And Jordanescu again. And the free kick given against Watson.
I then moved to Notts County in the First Division, Southampton and Brighton. I then had a knee injury which forced me out of the game for 4 years. In that time I went to America and rehabilitated my knee in Los Angeles and then Canada. Managed to do that, came back here and resumed my career at Torquay United.
Justin talked a lot about his early career. He talked about some things that he managed to do and some things that he didn't manage to do, starting with his first match.
I didn't manage to score. He didn't get a goal in his first match. I managed to win an England B cap. That means he was chosen to play for the England B team, the second team. I moved to Nottingham Forest for £1 million at 19. A lot of money. I then had a knee injury, and that injury kept him out of football for 4 years.
Justin is now a player and assistant manager at Torquay United, a small club in the southwest of England. What does he think of the club?
It's a small club. It has very few supporters, 1,000
800-900 would be the hardcore. We're a long way away from anywhere, so all the games we have to travel to away, it's quite a long journey. And it's a lot different to what I've been used to, but I'm experiencing managing here, and I'm experiencing dealing with trying to put a successful team onto the field without having lots of money and without having the luxuries that go with being a professional sportsman. So it's quite a culture shock.
Well played! Free kick there. Listen, you got a free kick because you got in front of him. Well done.
The players at this club are fabulous people. A lot of them are young, and it's a pleasure working with them. The only downside of that is that we've got probably a little bit of an imbalance of having too many young players who don't have the experience to help each other when you go through bad times. And so we're tending to lose a lot more games than we really should do because of lack of experience. I wish that the support for the team was more passionate and knowledgeable as well, because we have a very young team here. Because of the finances of a small club like Torquay, people have to be a little bit patient because we haven't got the finished article. We've got kids learning their trade, and it becomes very daunting for these kids playing at home, which it shouldn't be. We should be able to play at home and really express ourselves and enjoy playing at home. So I wish that people were a little bit more tolerant, but I think that's society now. I think that everybody wants a winner and they want it now.
Justin talked about two groups of people at the club.
The players, that's the team. And the supporters, that's the people who come to watch their team.
This is what Justin said about the players.
It's a pleasure working with them. He likes working with his team.
This is what he said about the supporters.
I wish that the support for the team was more passionate. He'd like stronger, louder support from the supporters.
Those were some of the things that Justin wishes were different at his present club. What regrets does he have about his whole career? Did he do some things that he wishes he hadn't done? Are there things that he didn't do that he wishes he had done?
I wish I'd won a full England cap and some more trophies. I think that would have been a highlight in my career, and something that's probably has been missing. I wish that I hadn't moved to Nottingham Forest for £1 million quite as quickly, because at that time there was one or two other offers that would have been put to me, which probably would have been a better option for me, which would have changed my career. I wish that I hadn't been injured because it was at such a crucial time in my career. And I think the last thing that I probably would have changed was that I would have been a little bit more disciplined and taking it a little bit more seriously, because everything had gone so well for me fairly easily that I didn't realize that the hardest thing was staying there, not getting there.
We all have regrets, even successful professional footballers.
That's right. Here are some of the things that Justin regrets.
I wish I'd won a full England cap. That means I wish I'd played for the first team, the full England team. I wish I hadn't moved to Nottingham Forest for £1 million quite so quickly. I wish that I hadn't been injured.
Today, we met Justin Fashanu, a professional footballer with some regrets about his past career.
We wish him the best of luck with his future career.
And we hope that you don't regret that you joined us. That's all for now. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Hello.
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 Today, helping people
We look at how to deal with people.
and how to solve their problems.
And we meet this woman, Tina Saunier, who works at Universal Studios in Florida.
I had a problem this morning.
That's right. You were late for work.
I know. My grandmother telephoned me. She wasn't feeling very well,
I'm sorry to hear that.
and she needed my help. She wanted me to go shopping with her.
So, what did you do?
I took her shopping in my car. The trouble is, I nearly had a crash.
And what if you had had a crash?
What do you mean?
What would we have done here if you'd had an accident?
Look, I had to help my grandmother. If I hadn't taken her shopping, she wouldn't have had any food.
Well, Natalie went to help her grandmother, and she was late for work. What would you have done in her position?
I would have done exactly the same.
I would have phoned the school to tell them I was going to be late.
I would certainly have taken my grandmother to the shops. I think people do have obligation to their relatives, and particularly elderly relatives.
I would have explained to my grandmother that I had to be on time.
I would have rung the office, made some excuse, and taken my grandmother to the shops.
I'd have taken my grandmother to the shops.
This is a job for Mighty Man.
What's the matter?
My washing machine has gone wrong.
Oh, dear. I'm sorry to hear that. But don't worry. I'll soon mend it.
But...
It's all right. No job is too hard for me. Do you know something?
What?
If I'd known you had a problem, I would have brought my tools.
Oh.
There you are. Now, what would you have done if I hadn't arrived?
I would have asked her to mend it.
Oh, dear.
The man didn't know there was a problem, so he didn't bring any tools with him.
If I'd known, if I had known, if I'd known, I would have brought my tools. If I'd known, I would have brought my tools.
The man thought he'd done a very good job.
What would you have done if I hadn't arrived? What would you have done if I hadn't arrived?
And the woman replied, I would have asked her to mend it. I would have asked her to mend it.
Universal Studios in Florida has thousands of visitors every day. Tina Saunier works in guest relations, a department which is there to help visitors. Let's find out what happens at Universal Studios and what they do in guest relations.
Universal Studios Florida is a theme park, and it's also the largest working motion picture studio outside of California. Here we have many rides and shows based on different movies or television series that may now be in progress. And we also do a number of productions, such as commercials and movies, right here on our backlot.
You're going to have a lot of fun today, so let's say smile. Okay. Here you are.
Our guest relations department is set up to assist our guests with whatever needs they may have throughout their day here at Universal. We do everything from warming baby bottles to assisting guests that may get sick throughout the day, giving out information, whether it be foreign language information or just assisting people with planning their day throughout the park.
To go to ET, right now we are right here. All you do is walk up Hollywood Boulevard, sir. Just make a right at the stop sign and continue walking past Mel's Diner to our World Expo area.
Okay.
And ET is a very good place to start.
Okay, thank you very much.
I also try to find out from our guests where they're from, if this is their first trip or their second trip. Usually if it's their first trip, then they need to get familiarized with our studio, and so I suggest ways that they can familiarize themselves by either taking our production tram tour or by walking a certain path that will give them a bird's eye view of everything that they need to do or may want to see.
Down there, our production tour is a 15-minute informational tour, and so what it'll basically do is it'll take you around the studio and just show you where everything is. It's a good way to start your day, too.
I think we'll start there.
Okay. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Have a good time.
We have guests here who lose a variety of things. The most common objects that they lose are sunglasses and cameras.
All of those?
No, I've done 3. We only got 3 left.
Okay. That's right.
During the summer, a lot of people lose their hats also. And, of course, they lose their children, which is a big thing.
License, no money.
No money?
I got a credit card and I've got a driver's license.
Okay. I'll take that in.
Also, a lot of people, especially men, lose their wallets. A lot of our rides are very turbulent, and they'll go on the ride, and they won't notice it until they get to the cafeteria or a restaurant that they want to go to lunch at and say, oh my goodness, my wallet's gone. We do everything. Anything we can do to assist our guests, we do that so that they can have a great time here.
People seem to lose a lot of things when they visit Universal Studios. Sunglasses,
cameras,
Hats.
wallets.
And children.
At guest relations, Tina and her colleagues often have to deal with people who don't speak English. There are also many visitors who are deaf. What do they do when there are communication problems like that?
We get a great many people here from foreign countries who do not speak English. And it's very hard sometimes to communicate with these people, but oftentimes people can speak just very few words of English, or we can speak, not just myself, but other people that work in the guest relations department here can speak a few words. So there seems to be always someone available to speak, whether it's a few words of French or Spanish or Portuguese or whatever it may be, to be able to assist that guest.
I'm looking for this one in Spanish.
Spanish?
Yes.
I can get that for you. Let's stay right down.
All right.
Do you need just one?
It's possible two.
Dos?
Yes.
There you are.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
But also, very often it's gestures. It's, well, you know, how can I help you? I don't know. Maybe, you know, come with me. Is this what you want? Pointing.
No Chinese.
Yeah.
No Chinese.
No Chinese. Sorry. We also have a great number of people here that are deaf. And we all don't know sign language. And so sometimes it comes down to them writing down what they need, and we, you know, write back to them.
Tina mentioned 2 methods that people can use to deal with communication problems.
Gestures. And sign language. 2 ways of communicating without speaking.
Tina often has to deal with visitors who have special disabilities. In the next part of the interview, she talks about a visitor who suffered from MS, multiple sclerosis, and we hear about the special arrangements that were made.
Often we have guests who know that they're coming on vacation, and they'll either write us or they'll call us, and they'll tell us their special circumstances and ask if there's anything unique that we can do for them. Such as one time we had a mother, a lady, she was very young, very attractive lady, about 33, and she had 2 small children. Her husband called me in advance and said, look, you know, my wife has been diagnosed with MS, and we don't want our children to know. They're 8 and 9 years old, and I don't want my wife to sit in a wheelchair because I don't want my kids to realize that there's something wrong here. And so what we did is we simply told them to come to guest relations, and that we would assist them by giving them a backdoor card where she would not have to sit in a wheelchair. Also, what we did for that family was, in this case, because she couldn't wait in lines and heat exhaustion was a big problem for them, we suggested that they split their day so that if she needed to go back to the hotel, she could and come back that night. They came at a time of year where they could do that because we had very extended hours at that time.
So, the woman was able to rest and come back to Universal Studios later in the evening. But what would have happened if she hadn't come at that time of year?
We would have done the same thing as far as the VIP pass. However, she wouldn't have been able to fully enjoy her day here, go back to the hotel, and then come back that night, because there would have been no night events to come back to.
Tina Saunier meets all kinds of people with all kinds of problems. Let's finish with Tina telling us what is the hardest, or, as she says, the toughest thing about her job.
The toughest part about working in guest relations is being yelled at relentlessly. Oh, gosh. People, sometimes, I have not always been in guest relations, and it's very hard to sometimes listen to some of the things that people have to say to you, because they are just so frustrated and they're so mad and they're going to get it out of their system, and they don't care what they're calling you or what they're saying. This is how they feel. And you have to stand there and listen. And it used to be very, very hard, but I think because I'm becoming more accustomed to it, it's okay now. I understand that they're just venting, and I know not to take it personally. But it's hard. It's very hard.
Poor Tina. People shouting and getting angry at her all day long.
Yes, and they're supposed to be on holiday.
Imagine what they must be like when they're not having a good time.
Goodbye.
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 Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Today, we talk about banks and money.
And we meet this man, Chris Bailey, who works at the Bank of England.
Banks and money. What do you use your bank for?
I use the bank for paying in my salary each month.
I use it to cash my checks, basically. That's really all I use it for.
I never go into a bank. I simply use it as a method of storing my money and drawing it out.
I use a bank for my checking and my savings accounts.
I personally would be very happy if I never had to walk into a bank again in my life. I'd much rather keep my money in a tin trunk underneath my bed.
I've just opened an account at my local bank here in London. I'm waiting for a checkbook. Instead, I got a letter from the bank this morning. Dear Mr. Dutcher, thank you for opening an account with us. Unfortunately, your checkbook might be delayed. Wonderful. Your checkbook might be delayed. Might be delayed. Perhaps it will be late.
Can I help you?
Yes. I'd like £1 million to be transferred from my current account to my deposit account.
I'm sorry, I'm very busy.
Are you going to transfer the money?
Of course not. You haven't got £1 million.
In that case, I'd like to close my account.
Fine. No problem. Goodbye. Did you hear that? He wanted me to transfer £1 million to his deposit account.
Yes, that's Mr. Higgins. He's the bank's biggest customer.
Oh, no. Mr. Higgins, come back.
He was richer than he looked. That customer had 2 bank accounts. He had a current account. That's the account you use a checkbook with. It's also called a checking account. He also had a deposit account. That's an account which pays you interest on your savings. It's also called a savings account. The customer wanted a rather special service from the bank.
I'd like £1 million to be transferred from my current account to my deposit account. To be transferred.
And Kevin wants something from his bank.
I'd like a checkbook to be sent to me immediately. I said I'd like a checkbook to be sent to me immediately. I told the bank that I wanted a checkbook to be sent to me immediately, but the letter says it might be delayed. I wonder why.
Well, your references have to be checked.
Do they? Oh.
Perhaps it's just a problem with the machine that prints the checkbooks.
What sort of problem?
Well, the machine might be broken.
Do you think so?
Well...
Yes, that must be the reason.
Oh.
Your references have to be checked. Your references have to be checked.
The machine might be broken. The machine might be broken. Britain's central bank is called the Bank of England. Chris Bailey works at the Bank of England, and he's going to tell us about the work that is done by the bank.
The Bank of England is Britain's central bank. Every country has a central bank. We are the government's bank, and we are the issuers of the money, of the notes that circulate in Britain. Some countries have independent central banks, where by constitution or by law, the central bank is set up separately from the government. But in this country, the Bank of England is owned by the government. They own all our shares. We are a part of the government team. So we give advice to the Treasury and to our Chancellor of the Exchequer and to the Prime Minister on monetary policy, what would be an appropriate policy, how fast to let the money supply grow. Once the elected politicians, once our democratic government have reached policy decisions based on our advice, we then carry out those policies.
One of the main functions of the Bank of England is to print and issue banknotes. How is that done?
The printing of banknotes is a very complex function. We have to be sure that our notes are as secure against counterfeiting and forgery as they possibly can be. So we want to use the latest printing techniques that are available. We reissue the currency notes about every 10 to 15 years in Britain. If we didn't do that, there's a risk that notes could easily be forged because printing technologies change. We need to be ahead of the counterfeiters. For example, one of the problems which all central banks face these days is that of the color copier machine. Notes might be forged on a color copier simply by putting them into the machine and people having a go. We keep ahead of that, partly because of the very complex paper we use, which is not at all like copy machine paper, and partly by the intense patterns and color combinations in the banknotes, which make it very difficult for a copying machine to reproduce them accurately. We have to be ahead of the technology, which means we have to redesign the product every 10 or 15 years.
Has the public's use of banknotes changed?
The use that the public make of paper money is rather less today than it was, say, 20 or 30 years ago. Typically, a man or woman working in a factory today will have their salary paid to them by a check. Whereas 20 years ago, probably somebody came around and gave them an envelope with banknotes inside it. That has changed. People now, when they go shopping, don't pay large amounts of cash across the counter. They use a credit card, or perhaps they use a check. So people can economize on banknotes. We print as many banknotes as the public want to use, but the relationship between the amount of banknotes we need to print and the amount of money the public can spend has changed.
Chris Bailey explained that the Bank of England is the government's bank.
The bank gives financial advice to the government and then carries out the government's financial policies.
He also talked about one of the other main jobs of the Bank of England. It prints all the banknotes, and it has to protect the public against forgery. That's when false banknotes are produced by criminals. This is what Chris said.
Notes could be forged, and people use some quite simple methods to do this. Notes might be forged on a colour copier. That's a colour photocopier.
The Bank of England isn't an ordinary bank. You can't open a bank account there. Well, you can't unless you work there. So what banking services does the Bank of England provide for the people who do work there, its staff?
The services that the bank provides to its staff customers are the same as those provided by a commercial bank. Cash can be drawn out across a counter. Cash can be drawn out through the automatic teller machines, which commercial banks, of course, have on the outside of their buildings. Foreign exchange can be bought, either foreign exchange notes or traveller's checks. Bills can be paid through banks. It's possible to have your utility bill paid, electricity or gas or telecommunications bills. These can be paid through banks. Taxes can be paid through banks. The Bank of England provides all these services to its staff, just as commercial banks provide them to men and women in general in Britain.
Good morning. Good morning. Can I change these dollars into pounds, please? Certainly. 20, 40, 50.
Exchange rate's 1.6. All right. There's £31.25.
That's fine.
There's a £2 commission charge for that. How would you like your money?
In fives, please? Certainly.
5, 10, 15, 20, 25. It's 29.25.
Thank you. I also have this international money order. Can I pay it into my current account?
Yeah, is it in sterling or in dollars?
It's in sterling.
Yeah, you can take it 21 of the cashiers.
Fine, thanks.
Okay.
There's been a revolution in commercial banking in Britain over the last 20 years. Indeed, a revolution in commercial banking in many parts of the world. Of course, one thing that has changed in commercial banking is the technology. In addition to those technological changes, there's much more competition in banking these days. Nowadays, if you go to a bank and you have a checking account, the bank will probably pay you interest on that checking account because it wants your savings. 20 years ago, that would probably not have been the case. So it's a much more competitive and user-friendly banking system today.
You can only have an account at the Bank of England if you work there.
And if you work there, it's just like an ordinary bank.
With all the usual services.
Cash can be drawn out. You can take money from your account. Foreign exchange can be bought. You can buy dollars, pesetas, lira, yen. Bills can be paid through the bank. And taxes can be paid through the bank.
Listen again to some of the things that were said in the bank.
Good morning. Can I change these dollars into pounds, please? Exchange rate's 1.6. There's a £2 commission charge for that. How'd you like your money? In fives, please.
Today, we met Chris Bailey from the Bank of England.
What's that, David?
It's a cheque from my aunt. I'll buy you both dinner tonight.
Great.
Thank you.
But I must get to my bank before it closes. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Hello.
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 Today, we look at the news.
And how it's reported on television and radio.
And we talked to this woman, Carol Walker, who is a news reporter on British television.
Good evening. Here is the news. Today, the President said that he was very pleased with the economic situation. Princess Bettina insisted that she had no plans to marry. And the coach of the US basketball team admitted that he felt very disappointed with last night's result. Those were news reports about the President, a princess, and the coach of the US basketball team. What did those people actually say? And how did I report it?
I am very pleased with the economic situation.
He said that he was very pleased with the economic situation.
No, no, no. I have no plans to marry.
She insisted that she had no plans to marry.
Yes, it's true. I feel very disappointed.
He admitted that he felt very disappointed.
How do you get your news? From television, radio, or newspapers?
I get my news from newspapers and the television.
I listen to the radio in the morning and the evening.
I get my news basically a lot from the radio. I don't watch a lot of television, and I don't have time to read the newspaper.
I get my news via satellite television.
I get my news by watching the television news each day.
Hi, welcome to Monster News. Today, I'm going to talk to one of the most famous monsters in the world. Hi, I'm Edwina Doom from Monster News. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions? Do you have any plans to make a new film? Who's your new girlfriend? And why don't you like answering questions?
Now then, did you want to ask me any questions?
What questions did the reporter ask the monster?
She asked him if he had any plans to make a new film. She asked him who his new girlfriend was. She asked him why he didn't like answering questions.
Television news needs pictures and sound. For any news story, there'll be a camera crew and usually a reporter who is on the spot to explain what is happening. Carol Walker is a BBC television news reporter. Let's find out how a story is put together and what the difficulties are.
Basically, the way we normally work is I will go out with a camera crew to film interviews, street scenes, pictures of the disaster, pictures of people shooting at one another, whatever it may be. We take the pictures back and I'll work with an editor and record my voice track. The editor will put together the pictures, perhaps an excerpt of an interview. And that basic process is the same whether I'm reporting on a British rail story in London or a war anywhere overseas.
We're going to have to keep it quite tight because we've only got, because it's short bulletins. We've only, they're talking about 1:10. Okay, can I just have a look at the pictures we've got of the 225s?
Aerial shots from the cab. Shots from the cab. We've got some aerials.
It'd be nice to start with some of this, wouldn't it, really?
Yeah.
What are the difficulties of the job?
Well, the difficulties vary according to what the story is and where the story is. Often it's a case of battling against the authorities who don't want you to find out what you want to find out.
Yeah, I did speak to her earlier, but I just had another query that I wanted to kind of clarify.
What are the ways to avoid bias and stay objective?
I think that to avoid bias, what you have to do is to stand back a little bit, to try to approach everything that anybody says to you with a certain degree of skepticism, and to try, wherever possible, to check it out and to get the other point of view, and not to necessarily believe everything people tell you, to always be aware that they may very well have a hidden agenda behind what they're telling you, and they may be exaggerating something for political reasons.
Carol works with a camera crew, a team of people who accompany her when she's reporting.
They film interviews and street scenes.
Carol may have to interview a politician or report a terrible accident or disaster.
She's now going to talk about one particular news story, a plane crash in Holland. Here's how she reported it on the television news.
Workers at the site of the crash found the flight data recorder buried beneath the collapsed concrete of the apartment block. It is severely damaged and burned and has been taken to the Farnborough Accident Investigation Centre to be examined by specialists. The cargo plane's full load of fuel kept the huge fire burning here for 3 hours. The flight data recorder is designed to withstand only about half an hour of intense heat.
We had heard from firemen at the scene of the crash that the flight data recorder had been found, and the Dutch Aviation Authority subsequently confirmed that.
These pictures show the El Al cargo plane arriving at Schiphol shortly before its last ill-fated flight. An airport spokesman has confirmed that in July it had a fire in the number 2 engine. Emergency services were alerted as it landed here on 3 engines, but the fire was put out by the plane's own extinguishers.
One senior Dutch air traffic controller had plotted the entire route of the plane. He was able to tell me at exactly what time the pilot had maydaid the emergency, He told me exactly the advice he'd given to the pilot. He told me what the pilot had done to try to avert the crash, and he told me why the plane had actually crashed where it had.
Air traffic controllers have already given crash investigators some details of that final flight, number LY1862, which lasted less than 15 minutes. At 6,000 feet as it headed out along the coast, the Israeli pilot put out a mayday call, reporting fire in the number 3 engine. The radar map charts his downward spiral, circling twice as he struggled to control the plane. Air traffic controllers advised the El Al pilot to head for Schiphol's main runway, where a strong headwind might have helped him. Instead, he went for the closest runway, where a tailwind made his task more difficult. But by that stage, it is debatable whether anything could have saved the plane from crashing.
Other authorities, for example, the city authorities from Amsterdam, the mayor gave a press conference, and we asked why, for example, initially the death toll had been put at in excess of 200. It was later revised to about 80. And the mayor said that it was because it was very difficult to have accurate records in that area where there was a large and partly illegal immigrant community.
At the centre of the crash, the search for further clues is taking second place to the efforts to recover what remains of the dead before Friday's deadline when the site will be cleared. Experts here accept this will make the task of the crash investigators more difficult. Carol Walker, BBC News, Amsterdam.
That was a difficult story to report. Carol interviewed air traffic controllers and people involved in the rescue operation. They were very concerned to find the flight data recorder. This is what Carol found out.
We had heard that the flight data recorder had been found.
And what did the air traffic controller say?
He told me the advice he had given to the pilot. He advised the pilot to head for the main runway.
Reporting about the Amsterdam air disaster was a disturbing job for Carol. So, after all that, does she like her work?
I think I enjoy the unpredictability of it. I think I enjoy the fact that even if I'm having a rather boring day in the office, things can happen very suddenly and I can be travelling somewhere halfway around the world. I think also you get, if you like, a front row seat on events which are shaping history, world events of enormous importance, and a chance to actually be there when those events are happening and to talk to the people who are making history is an extraordinary opportunity.
This is what Carol enjoys about her work.
She likes having a front row seat. She reports on world events of enormous importance. And she interviews people who are making history.
Today, we met Carol Walker, an international television news reporter.
And she told us what her working life was like.
That's all for now. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.